Picture this: a peaceful coastal village, the salty breeze carrying the scent of the ocean. Fishermen dock their boats after a long day at sea, their lives tied to the rhythm of the waves. Among them is a quiet man, weathered by years on the water, with eyes that have seen storms and secrets far beyond anyone's imagination. But his calm life takes a sudden turn when a group of reckless bikers rolls into town. Loud, arrogant, and looking for trouble, they spot his boat, a vessel that holds his livelihood, and decide to leave their mark. They laugh as they scratch the paint, slash the nets, and mock the man who watches in silence. What they don't know is that this seemingly ordinary fisherman isn't just anyone. He's a former Marine with a past so dangerous it's classified. And now they've awakened the one man they never should have crossed. What happens next will leave you questioning how far someone can go to protect what's theirs. Stay tuned. The bikers rode off, leaving behind a trail of destruction and laughter, echoing through the quiet village. The fisherman stood by his boat, his weathered hands running over the deep scratches in the wood, his eyes narrowing. This boat wasn't just a tool. It was his legacy, built with his own hands and tied to every memory of his life on the sea. The villagers watched from a distance, murmuring quietly among themselves. They knew this man's reputation. Though he never spoke of his past, whispers about his time in the military floated through the town like ghost stories. Back in his small, modest home, he sat at a worn table, flipping through an old photo album. Faded pictures of him in uniform, standing with his team, reminded him of a time he'd tried to leave behind. But some skills never fade, and some instincts stay sharp no matter how many years pass. The bikers thought they'd found an easy target. Little did they know they had just made the most dangerous mistake of their lives. The next morning, the fisherman walked through the village market, his usual quiet presence drawing nods from a few locals. But behind those nods were worried glances. The bikers had stirred up more than trouble. They had disrupted the fragile peace of the community. At a corner stall, an elderly shopkeeper leaned in and whispered, "You won't let this go, will you?" The fisherman gave a small, unreadable smile, but said nothing. He carried on, his steps calm but deliberate, as if weighing every moment against the storm brewing inside him. Meanwhile, the bikers had set up camp at an old abandoned factory on the outskirts of town. To them, this was just another stop on their chaotic journey, another place to raise a little havoc before moving on. They left over beers, completely unaware that their actions had lit a fuse they couldn't put out. One of them mentioned the fisherman in passing, mocking the way he'd stood there silently. But silence doesn't always mean surrender. Back at his home, the fisherman opened a locked chest tucked beneath his bed. Inside were tools of a different life, maps, equipment, and reminders of the man he once was. He carefully laid them out, his mind working methodically. This wasn't just about a boat anymore. It was about respect, boundaries, and a lesson these strangers desperately needed to learn. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the village, the fisherman stood on the dock, his eyes fixed on the water. The sea had always been his refuge, a place where the world's noise faded away. But tonight, the calm waves seemed to mirror the quiet resolve in his heart. The villagers watched him from their windows, their unease growing. They knew something was coming, they just didn't know when. At the bikers' camp, the mood was anything but tense. They laughed loudly, the clanking of bottles echoing in the still night. One of them leaned against his bike, bragging about the scratches he'd left on the fisherman's boat. "Did you see the look on his face?" he said, grinning. But as the laughter died down, a faint noise caught their attention. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, a sound like the shifting of metal against stone. Suddenly, the factory's power cut out, plunging their camp into darkness. Confused, they scrambled for flashlights, their beams flickering across empty walls. But the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy, charged, as if the air itself was holding its breath. Somewhere in the shadows, the fishermen moved with precision, every step calculated, every sound intentional. The bikers, so used to being in control, now felt the unsettling grip of fear. The tables had turned, and they were about to learn that the man they underestimated wasn't hunting for revenge. He was making sure they never forgot the cost of crossing the wrong person. The bikers huddled together, their bravado fading as the pitch-black factory seemed to close in around them. Every creak of the old structure, every faint rustle in the shadows, made their nerves tighten. They weren't used to feeling this way, cornered, vulnerable. "It's just the wind," one of them muttered, but his voice betrayed his doubt. Then from the darkness, a low, deliberate sound cut through the silence. The unmistakable snap of a flare being lit. A red glow filled the space, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. Standing in the center of the room was the fisherman, his figure tall and steady, holding the burning flare in one hand. The expression on his face wasn't angry or aggressive. It was calm, unnervingly so. The bikers froze, unsure whether to fight, run, or reason with him. "You came to my village, damaged what's mine," he said, his voice steady but sharp. "Now you'll understand what it means to take something you don't deserve." But before the bikers could react, another voice echoed from the darkness, deep, commanding, and entirely unfamiliar. "I wouldn't make a move if I were you." From the shadows stepped another man, one the fisherman instantly recognized. It was an old comrade from his military days, someone he hadn't seen in years. The man had his own reasons for tracking the bikers, and his presence complicated everything. The fisherman's plan, once so precise, now had a new player, a wild card who could either help or completely derail everything. The bikers, caught between two forces they didn't understand, realized too late they were in far deeper than they had ever imagined. The tension in the room was palpable, the flickering red light of the flare casting jagged shadows on the walls. The fisherman glanced at the man who had stepped from the shadows, his old comrade. "This isn't your fight," the fisherman said quietly, his tone steady but edged with caution. The man gave a faint smile. "It is now," he replied, his eyes darting to the bikers, who stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. One of the bikers, desperate to regain control, lunged forward, a wrench in his hand. But before he could even swing, the fisherman moved with lightning precision, disarming him effortlessly and sending him sprawling to the ground. The others hesitated, realizing too late that this wasn't a fight they could win. The fisherman stepped closer, his voice low but commanding. "You think you're untouchable, but you've never faced someone like me. I don't fight for pride, I fight for what matters." Just as it seemed the situation was under control, the unexpected happened. The old comrade reached into his jacket and revealed a badge. "This isn't just about a boat," he said, his voice cutting through the room like steel. "These guys aren't just vandals. They've been wanted for bigger crimes across state lines. I've been tracking them for months, and tonight you led me straight to them." The bikers' faces paled as the realization hit them. This wasn't just about a fisherman defending his boat. They had walked into a trap of their own making, one that had been closing in for far longer than they knew. As law enforcement arrived, summoned by the comrade's signal, the fishermen stood silently, watching as the bikers were handcuffed and led away. Before leaving, the comrade turned to the fisherman. "You haven't lost your edge," he said with a nod. The fisherman didn't reply, his focus returning to the calm waters beyond the factory. In the end, it wasn't just about protecting his boat. It was about restoring peace to the village and showing that some battles are won with patience and precision. As the night quieted, the fisherman walked back to his dock, knowing he had sent a message no one in that group would forget. As dawn broke over the village, the fisherman stood on the dock, repairing the damage to his boat. The scratches and torn nets told a story, but they were just surface wounds. The real victory lay in the restored sense of peace that settled over the town. Villagers passed by, some offering quiet thanks, others just nodding in respect. They knew the man didn't need praise. His actions had always spoken louder than words. The old comrade, now preparing to leave, approached the fisherman one last time. "You could have joined me all those years ago," he said, a hint of curiosity in his voice. The fisherman paused, tying off a rope, and finally replied, "I chose the sea because it doesn't lie. Out there, you earn your place honestly. That's all I've ever wanted." As the comrade drove off, the fisherman pushed his boat back into the water, the waves lapping gently against its hull. Life would go on, steady and quiet, just the way he preferred it. But beneath the calm surface, the village would always remember him as more than just a fisherman, a protector, a reminder that even the simplest lives can hold extraordinary strength.